Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're watching us from and listening to us from. My name is Wendy Ajulu, Community Officer at Sandbox International. It is a pleasure to have you here tonight as we discuss a very important issue that is pressing all of us and has us in very uncomfortable positions. Tonight's session is unpacking the ETIMS system and how does this affect the operations of your business. A few house rules before we begin. Kindly make sure that your microphones are muted, just so that we don't disrupt the session throughout the evening. If there are any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll pick them up and they'll be answered by our panelists throughout the session. Please introduce yourself in the chat. If you're a business owner, a content creator, or whatever you do, please introduce yourself in the chat. And as the session is going, please make it as interactive as possible. For those who are joining us now, pick up your phone and send whoever you need to send this link for them to join us tonight, because this is not the session you want to miss. And our speakers for tonight are Angela Kioi, Beatrice Njeri, and Joram Mwinamo. Joram is our moderator for the session tonight, and I'd like to hand over to him. For those who are not aware, Joram is the CEO and co-founder of Sandbox International. And he'll talk more about Sandbox as well as Beatrice and Angela for whatever they do at their businesses. Yes, so thank you so much. If there are any questions, put them in the chat, introduce yourself in the chat, and I'm really looking forward to a productive session this evening. Joram, over to you.
Okay, good evening. Welcome, everyone. So glad to have all of you joining us. We can see so many people who have joined us. I'm seeing a lot of names. Some are familiar. Glad to have all of you joining us. We are excited. This is our second session of the webinars that we shall be doing every 2 weeks. This year, we've just decided to go full throttle. It's time people get to learn a lot about how they can build their businesses so that we can combat all the challenges that are going on around us. And today, we are going to be having a conversation around our good friends at KRA. They came up with something called ETIMS, and we're all wondering, what is this all about? I'm sure we have seen either WhatsApp, chats going around that there are changes happening, and then we've seen counter, messages, and so leaving everyone confused. And we are here to clear the air. And so we've brought together two extremely qualified people. They are both experts at the Sandbox, Angela Kioi and Beatrice, who are going to be helping us unpack this and just get to learn about what it is that we are going to do. And so I'm going to just do a brief intro of both of them. I'll start with Angela. Angela Kioi is a corporate law advocate with over 10 years of experience. She has been dedicated to providing legal services to businesses and in particular SMEs. She's very focused on SMEs. And over the last 4 years, she has worked exclusively with businesses providing critical legal support and advice to over 350 businesses. Angela is a legal compliance expert, a negotiator, and an ADR practitioner. ADR means Alternative Dispute Resolution. And so she's currently the managing partner, I would also say founder of Kioi and Company Advocates, which is, I would have to say, one of the most innovative law firms I've come across. She's right here at the Sandbox. They also carry out alternative dispute at the law firm, and they understand businesses. They continue to be legal partners who will work with startups, work with you through your growth all the way to your maturity as a business. So welcome, Angela. Maybe you can just say something so that we hear your voice.
I was going to say, those are many things that have been written, but thank you so much, Joram. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we'll come back to you just now, but I want to also introduce CPA Beatrice, and then I'll give both of you a chance just to give us an overview of what it is that's going on. So Beatrice Njeri is a distinguished certified public accountant, CPAK, with over 12 years experience in financial management, taxation and accounting. and she stands at the front of the financial renaissance. Holding a Bachelor of Science in International Business from USIU, Beatrice has seamlessly driven out inefficiencies through process improvements and has been a guiding force in maintaining and substantiating accounting processes across diverse business sectors. In her role as the tax compliance and accounting partner at Ushuru Masterclass Limited, Beatrice leads an efficient and productive team, providing management information to clients and advising on optimal processes for business growth. Her vision is to incorporate sound tax practices in a professional and relatable manner, ensuring tax efficient strategies are employed to optimize clients' positions and enhance profit extraction. So qualifications such as being a certified public accountant and a trained assessor in tax administration diagnostic assessment tool. You know, today's the first time I read that there's a tool like that. It's called TADAT, underscores Beatrice's professional expertise. So welcome, Beatrice. Let's hear your voice. Are you there?
Thanks, Joram. Hi, everyone, and thanks, Joram,
Okay,
for the
welcome.
introduction.
Yeah, welcome. We're excited to have all of you joining us. What happens in sessions like this is that if your name is recognizable, you risk being mentioned. I can see you there, Marcus. I can see you, Mangera. I can see quite a number of people out here that I know. You're all very welcome, and we are very excited to have you. So as we go along, I want to try and make tax fun and interesting. I think this situation that we have today has evolved quite a bit, and so we're just going to have Angela take us through how did this whole ETIMS situation come about to what it is today. You know, what was the evolution, and what brought us to where we are today.
All right, thank you, Joram. So I think even before I start discussing the evolution of ETIMS, we just look at what it is that is required by law. So at the basic part, at the end of the day, all businesses are required to pay tax. So it depends. There are different taxes that a business may be required to pay or that is assessed to pay. But the first thing we need to get clear in our heads is that tax is an obligation. It's a legal obligation, and it's there for all businesses. So some of the different type of taxes you may meet as a business, for example, a VAT tax, withholding tax, income tax, payee, installment tax. So there are all these different types of taxes, and rather all these different taxes that are relevant to businesses as an underpinning on this conversation. So a VAT obligation, usually we say, is attached to your company at the point of registration. And this is especially since we started registering businesses through eCitizen. Even when you register your business today, let's say you're here today and you have not registered your business, one of the questions you'll be asked is if your company will have a turnover of over 5 million shillings per annum. The reason why this question is asked is because if it does, then it will automatically be registered for VAT. So it's also important to make sure, so even at the initial, the first stepping stone when you're creating your company, such information is used to then assess which taxes you're going to be eligible for. I think over the years, the government noticed that businesses were looking for ways, I say to evade or to avoid taxation. And one of the ways that this was happening was through something they called the missing trader. So because I am assessed, I need to pay value-added tax. I know that there's input tax and output tax. And so what a business would do is to go and get to bring in invoices which have tax, which have VAT added on them, and use that to reduce the tax burden. Because of this problem, KRA and the government of Kenya wanted to find a solution to close such loopholes, because it reduces the amount of, it enables businesses to evade or avoid tax, and in an illegal manner, so if we are honest. Because of this problem, KRA then decided to come up with the ETIMS system. So ETIMS came about, it was launched on 1st of August 2021, and it basically means Tax Invoice Management System. From 2021, there was a grace period that was extended until 31st July of 2022. And essentially, initially, ETIMS was there for VAT registered businesses. And the obligation was for VAT registered businesses to integrate their ETR machines with their billings so that you can ensure that each and every invoice is accounted for. So that, and this would also remove the issue of sometimes I charge VAT, sometimes I don't. So the whole idea around ETIMS was to make sure that your invoicing system and your ETR machine are connected, are linked together and integrated so that each time you issue an invoice, an ETR is generated. 20th of February 2022 now commenced phase 2, ETIMS. And ETIMS is a software alternate to the ETIMS ETR machine. So I'm sure Beatrice will talk about it, but ETIMS is the physical ETR machine, and then ETIMS was now going to be a software. And the software then would have enabled everybody to then generate invoices on this platform, either through mobile apps or through your computer, through your phone. And you would then now come and generate all your invoices on the ETIMS platform. Thereafter, KRA rolled out the Revenue Services Assistance Program, which was basically to support taxpayers with compliance needs. And one of the major roles included support for compliance with ETIMS. So there is provision and there is a whole system that has been created to ensure that people are now compliant with ETIMS, that businesses now will become compliant with ETIMS. So pursuant to the Finance Act of 2023, the requirement for all persons carrying out business, including those not registered, for VAT to generate and transmit all invoices electronically to KRA through ETIMS. So now we see the evolution. So initially when we started out with ETIMS, we said that it was primarily looking at VAT, companies that are registered for VAT. So now we have this transition where we talk about ETIMS and ETIMS obligation being for all businesses, whether or not they're registered for VAT. So I know, and I'm sure Beatrice will talk about the differences because I saw there's an announcement that businesses which are not meeting the VAT threshold will be given a different platform. But the idea here is for the government to capture all of the invoices that you generate for as a business and ensure that those invoices are properly, that you've raised VAT properly and that you've accounted and paid the VAT to the government. So there's a deadline for 31st of March where all businesses must be registered and onboarded for ETIMS. And the other important regulation that we need to know is that when you have ETIMS, the new regulation is that there is no business expense that will be allowed in the year from 2024, from 1st of January 2024, no business expense will be allowed even when it comes to your end year tax returns where that has not been generated for ETIMS. So I think as we're saying and as we discussed today, there is a lot of implication for each and every business, because you'd want that your business expenses are allowed, and so you need to consider how you're going to deal with other service providers who are businesses. But Joram, that is basically a quick overview of where we've started and how we got to where we are.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
You've mentioned a few things that I'll come back to. Beatrice, you can maybe now tell us a little bit more about ETIMS specifically. Maybe just give us an overview of what is it, how do you go about operating and the like. You can compass, chanua us about ETIMS. Let us know a little bit more about it.
Thanks, Joram, and everybody in this meeting for joining. So I think Angela has given us a very good overview of how ETIMS evolved. And I'm going to basically just talk about what ETIMS really entails. So ETIMS, which stands for Electronic Tax Invoice Management System, is basically a software-based solution that allows you to generate your invoices through the KRA portal or through an integrated system to ensure that your sales and your revenue are automatically transmitted to KRA on a real-time basis. As Angela has mentioned, KRA was trying to leverage on technology when they introduced ETIMS for them to effectively manage the revenue, the tax revenue. So initially, when we had TIMS, this involved having an ETR or a device that you generate your invoices through the device, and the same will be transmitted as long as you had internet. Given that this was a costly solution and some businesses were not able to upgrade to the new ETRs or upgrade their old ETRs into internet-based devices. So they introduced the ETIMS so that you're able to generate these invoices through a software that is provided by the KRA. So what it entails is you're first meant to onboard to ETIMS through the ETIMS portal. I know most of you are familiar with iTax. So there is a separate ETIMS portal where you sign up for ETIMS, and your signing up will have to be approved by KRA. And from then you're able to generate your invoices directly through the portal. So what is happening is there are different solutions for ETIMS depending on the nature of your business. Let's say you're dealing with goods or services or both. So their solutions are divided into about 3. The first one being you can generate the invoices directly on the portal, and that is applicable for businesses that are dealing with services. So you just log into ETIMS, into the account that you'll get credentials, and you're able to log in, and you're able to do your invoices on the ETIMS portal. The other option is you can also already have an existing ERP or an invoicing system, which can be integrated with ETIMS so that you continue generating your invoices on your existing ERP, but the same invoices will come out when they're already ETIMS compliant because it's been integrated to ETIMS. The other option is through using a third party. KRA has approved 5 third-party providers who have software that are integrated with ETIMS, and once you are integrated with this third-party software, then you can use those platforms as your solution for your invoicing. So I think, Joram, we can move on to...
Okay. So we've had you. So I know a lot of the people who've joined us today are entrepreneurs, business people, or work somewhere where they are very interested in this topic to know whether their organization, should do this or not. So I'm sure the first question that everyone has is every business supposed to register? Whether I'm a sole proprietor, whether I'm a limited company, I'm a partnership, non-profits. I'm sure people have questions of, are all of us supposed to register to get on board ETIMS? I don't know. Angela, you could answer that, and then we'll come back to you, Beatrice.
I think Beatrice maybe can give a bit more information, but as at the moment, there is a requirement for it. It captures all businesses that are required to register. I think there are some exemptions that are permitted, and you can make an application for you to get exempted. But I don't know, Beatrice, maybe you can answer the question on non-profits also.
Yeah. Yeah. And somebody's asking
Mm.
about freelancers as well. You know, who is to register on this?
Yeah, so basically for all businesses, there's a requirement to register on ETIMS, except there are a few exemptions. But I think everybody should understand that the provision is clear that every expenditure that is incurred from 1st of January this year will need to be generated on ETIMS for it to be deductible for tax purposes. What that means is even for businesses that are exempted, especially, I don't know if maybe I should highlight on which exemptions are provided.
Yes, you can do that.
Yeah. So for example, emoluments, which involve any earnings from employment, that being salaries, wages, allowances, or any other emoluments that are earned from employment, these ones are exempted. So you're free, you can claim the expenses from emoluments without having to generate this on ETIMS. Also, there are imports. Any importation that you make, the expenditure is deductible for tax purposes without having to get an ETIMS invoice. And this is because you'll already have documentation of your imports, which will have gone through KRA anyway. So they already have the information. Things like investment allowances, these ones are also exempted from ETIMS requirement. Airline passenger tickets are also exempted. Interest from financial institutions and their fees are also exempted. Withholding tax, that is final tax. By this, I mean, you can see when it's said that when it's final tax, it means for professional and consultancy fees, these ones are not part of the exemption. These include withholding tax that is deducted, payments that attract withholding tax from payments like winnings, dividends, interest on bonds, and such. Also supplies by resident persons who are below 5 million in turnover. And this will come back to. Also services by non-resident persons who do not have a permanent establishment in Kenya. So exempting resident persons who are under 5 million in revenue. This is a bit confusing, but the explanation is clear that all expenses will need to be on ETIMS before claiming them for tax purposes. So what this means is, let's say you have a supplier who is exempted from ETIMS. They are below the 5 million mark. So they give you receipts or invoices that have not been generated on ETIMS. This means for you as the customer, you'll have the burden of proving to KRA that this supplier was below the 5 million mark for them to be able to allow you to claim that expense. This means even for freelancers, for consultants, that business expenditure will need to be supported by an ETIMS invoice for it to be deductible for tax purposes.
Okay.
I think that makes
Yeah.
that answers the question on if you're required to register for ETIMS, if you're a freelancer or a consultant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if your turnover is below 5 million. I
Exactly.
think maybe what is not being talked about loudly is that a lot of larger companies or companies that have a good accountant are usually very concerned about ensuring they get an invoice that is tax deductible. And so what this move is going to do is get a lot of your blue chip companies or companies again that because you're able to reduce what you pay on tax if you're able to claim on an ETIMS invoice. So this then means that a lot of organizations might start to say, if you don't give us an ETIMS invoice, we are not going to be able to do business with you. And that means it's locking out more people from offering services to larger companies. Is that what is not being said loudly?
That's right. In fact, for big corporations and it's just like it's going to be ETIMS will be like a requirement, just like how when you're getting a tender from the government, they'll tell you need either a tax compliance or you need to have a VAT registration. ETIMS will be the next thing to qualify you for to be a supplier in especially the bigger companies. They wouldn't want the headache of having to prove that they were supplied by an ETIMS exempt supplier.
Company. Yeah.
Yes. It would mean even this supplier needs to supply them with a proof that they are below the 5 million. Meaning you'd maybe need to issue them with your audited financial statement for them to see that indeed you're below the 5 million threshold.
Okay.
Sorry, just to weigh in, I think there is also another consideration, especially for the smaller businesses, SMEs, growing businesses, is that even as we do business and perhaps you're trading with people who are not registered on ETIMS, what you need to recognize is that for you as a business, you run the risk of those invoices not being accepted at the end of the year. And when I think about this as a business, I then start saying I need to be able to deduct, to have invoices that I can use to remove expenses in my business. Otherwise, I will be liable to pay a lot more tax than I am actually supposed to be that I'm actually supposed to pay. So I think it also touches on us, how we do business beyond how the blue chip companies will do business. I think it also comes back and touches on how we do business as growing businesses, as SMEs, because then you need to also make sure that you are able to deduct on the invoices that you have paid over the year.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I'll keep reading in between the lines. I think I'll be the one to let the cat out of the bag. So this is just really a smart way of KRA roping in everyone. And if you choose not to be part of this system, it means either you don't want to do business with people who are going to require an ETIMS invoice. Like you're choosing to stay in the informal space where no receipts are offered and that kind of thing, which is going to be a shrinking space over time, because most people will want to get business from, they're already supplying someone, they may be below 5 million, but because they are forced to get an ETIMS invoice, then they have to onboard. And when they do that, maybe some of them were not registered for tax before, and therefore they are now in the system. Or if you give an invoice and somebody tries to claim and you're not in the system, then they can now come looking for you. Is that kind of what is happening in terms of I don't know if KRA are here represented here, but it's that the noose is really tightening on businesses, and particularly small and informal businesses.
Yeah, that's true. Ideally for companies, they risk paying more tax by dealing with non-ETIMS compliant suppliers, because essentially if you're not able to deduct that expense, it means you're paying tax on that expense, ideally. And the thing is, the ETIMS is interconnected and all this is being transmitted to KRA. So KRA will be able to tell upfront that this person has already made this business and they expect them to declare the same. So there's no way you're going to fake an expense like earlier, because this should already be on KRA systems for you to be able to claim it.
Yes. Okay, I can see questions coming in fast and furious. I think people want to really understand us, especially individual consultants, and I think people who may not have registered companies. Does that mean that then they have to get registered to onboard onto ETIMS, or can they, as an individual who doesn't have a registered business, be able to send an ETIMS compliant invoice? I feel like this topic has taken us down a rabbit hole, but I'm sure people would want to know that.
Yeah, even if you're an individual, it goes back to the same. Is your customer going to need that expense at the end of the year to deduct it from their income for them to reduce their tax? Then essentially they will demand a ETIMS invoice.
Okay.
What will happen is there's going to be alternative ETIMS solutions, including the mobile. So if you're doing just one transaction, you'll be able to, and this is mostly going to be provided by the third-party integrators, so that if you're just doing one invoice and you're able to just generate that invoice on ETIMS and you're good to go.
Okay. So we can maybe go back to the process of then how do I onboard onto ETIMS? What's the process? Because it seems like a lot of us who may not have been in that space might need to do so. What does it take to onboard? I'll come back to a question of someone asking about automatic, is it population of VAT returns or something of a sort, but maybe we can just go back right to the beginning then. Now, if I'm not compliant and I want to be compliant this month because I risk losing out, I'm an independent contractor, I'm a freelancer, I have been doing photography for Safaricom, I'm not targeting anyone. I've been doing, supplies to company X, Y, or Z, and I've been doing it as a company that's below 5 million turnover. But now I realize that I might be locked out of tendering. Where do I start today?
So the first step is to sign up on the ETIMS page. So you'll just go to the URL of etims.kra.go.ke. And then the moment you insert your username, which is your PIN, it will populate your details. And then you'll be prompted to request for a POC code that will be sent to the registered phone number, and that will help you to begin your signing up. So what you require for the signing up is there are a few documents that you need to provide. If you're a company, for example, you need to have an application letter for you applying to KRA that you want to be onboarded to ETIMS. And then you'll need your CR12 of the company, showing the directors of the company. And then you'll choose a representative director of the company and provide their ID card or their passport. And then there's a commitment form that is on ETIMS that is provided by KRA that you'll need to fill in, which entails giving information about the company, including the contact number, the phone number, the email address, the director, and the solution that you'd like to use of the 3 solutions that I mentioned. So this information that you're providing, you should ensure that it is the same that is on your database, the iTax database, because these systems are still linked, and providing that information, it will be verified to ensure that you're giving the same information. KRA will conduct a due diligence once you provide this documentation, a due diligence interview just to determine the nature of your business, frequency of your invoicing, if you have access to a computing device, let's say a computer or a laptop, a tablet, a smartphone, and if you have access to the internet. This will help them to determine the software option that is suitable for the type of business that you're running. After which, when they are satisfied with all this information, they will approve you signing up, and you'll be able to sign up and then get an installation of the software. Or if you're using the web-based, it will then be activated for you to be able to generate your invoices on the portal. Yeah.
Okay, keep the questions coming. We will do our best to try and address as many of them as possible as are coming up. I remember that I forgot to tell you all who we are, those who may be joining us for the first time. I'm the CEO of Sandbox. Sandbox is a one-stop shop that supports enterprises on issues like today's topics, which is how to be compliant, but we also support enterprises on just how to run your business well from different aspects. We have 34 different professional service providers today, of which Angela and Beatrice are 2 of the companies that are represented at Sandbox. Angela Kioi is our legal expert of Kioi and Company, and Beatrice is our tax expert from Ushuru Masterclass Limited. They are 2 of the 34, and we will keep having sessions like this with different topics. And so today, ETIMS is hot, and we all know we need to just get compliant and learn what it is that's happening, what's going on. And so we will be dealing with such topics as we go along, and we are so glad that you all joined us today. Like I said, continue to just put your questions on the chat, and a bit later we will ask a question. We'll ask you to maybe unmute and ask a question. But for now, we just continue to discover what will be the consequences of not onboarding onto ETIMS. Is there a legal consequence? Is there a business consequence to not onboarding onto ETIMS? Is it like something mandatory? We're trying to understand it from different points of view.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Angela, you can go first.
Yes, there is a consequence where you fail to comply with the regulations, and anyone who commits an offense under the regulations is liable to a penalty as provided under Section 86 of the Tax Procedures Act. That penalty is a fine of 100,000 shillings. So where you are not compliant with the regulations, and you will be assessed to pay a tax of 100,000 shillings. I don't know whether there's any other on your part, Beatrice.
Yeah, I think it's just the ineligibility to deduct the expenses when you're computing the taxable income for corporate tax purposes. So that goes for, it's the same thing. You may lose out on business because you're not ETIMS compliant, and suppliers will not want to work with you. They would prefer to relieve themselves from the headache of having to prove that they bought from an ETIMS exempt business.
Yeah. And that also means on the flip side for ourselves as small business owners or as business owners, because we also want to get tax deductible invoices, we also need to be demanding of ETIMS compliant invoices from our suppliers, right?
That's
If we
right.
are able
That's
to
right.
deduct, yeah. Okay, so there's going to be a business loss both sides if we are not able to onboard onto this. Are there any like significant technological requirements? Do we need to buy new gadgets? Do we need to do new things at this point, or can we continue as is? And then some of us already have gadgets that we were using for generating ETR invoices in our offices. What do we do with those gadgets that currently exist?
Okay, so for ETIMS to work, you require basically the native devices that you already have: a computer, a tablet, a smartphone, and reliable internet connection, and a compatible system. For example, the phone with a specification of the Android version that we should have on the phone, that has a sufficient processing capability. And of course, the recommended browsers. So as you have asked, for TIMS compliant, the initial VAT TIMS devices, people who are already on TIMS are considered already ETIMS compliant because they're able to generate their invoices and transmit to KRA. That means they do not need to onboard to ETIMS, not unless they have problems with the TIMS, or it's an inconvenience, or well, maybe you need to do the ETR from different locations if you're using the web-based solution. So it basically depends on how your experience is with the TIMS. But if you have TIMS, you do not require to onboard to ETIMS.
And I saw somebody asking a roundabout question. I'll ask it differently. If I'm on ETIMS, does it make my tax returns at the end of the year easier because KRA have been getting my data as they go along, rather than now me having to compute at the end of the year and do filing? Does this make it easier, and does it exempt me from having to do that final tax return come that deadline that we all rush to do until we crash their systems?
So there will exist a pre-populated return already because KRA has your data, you right? But it still is your responsibility to confirm that the same is correct. And that, so you still need somebody to, or rather you need to check like all the data there is accurate and it relates to your business, because it's still a self-assessment. So you're still required to be on top of it, and the filing requirement remains. It doesn't mean KRA will go ahead and push the button to file it for you.
Okay. I'll ask a bit of a philosophical and legal question. Has this been challenged in court? You know, usually when things like this come up, Kenyans, we wait for Okia Mtata to go and get an injunction to have it stopped. Or is this something that we should not expect such miracles to happen? Where is it at from a legal standpoint countrywide? Because I know the conversation has been going on for a while. What can you comment on on that particular issue? Should we all be rushing to comply, or is there hope that somebody could challenge and say you need the internet and it's discriminative to people in Lodwar and something of a sort?
So I think first, as I noted earlier at the very beginning, this is a journey that has been ongoing since 2021. And as you've already seen, people, a lot of people who are registered for VAT were already TIMS compliant. And so ETIMS is the next step. In terms of any challenge in court, I do not think it has been challenged. I will check, but I do not think it has been challenged at the moment in court. Is it possible? I think there are serious questions that we need to raise that can be raised legally with regards to its accessibility to everybody. Because as we understand in Kenya, business is done in so many different ways. And how does it? I've seen someone asking about the Juakali industry. So how does having ETIMS relate to, for example, someone who's in the Juakali industry? And how do we then get a way of having equality when it comes to engaging with the tools that the government is preparing? I think there have been so many different instances where people have raised that as the government moves on technologically, there are some people who have been left behind, and it will happen even with ETIMS. It will happen with businesses that are, maybe, as you said, are in Lodwar, where there's spotty internet. They're in Lamu, where where maybe there's no electricity, constant supply of electricity. So what happens to those businesses? However, what I'd say is, coming from a compliance perspective and as a compliance expert, I encourage businesses. Right now, I feel as if I'm talking to people in Nairobi who have internet at this particular moment. And I encourage businesses to ensure that they're compliant with the law, because the penalties for non-compliance are really stiff and are detrimental to your business. So where you do not comply, you fail to comply, beyond just being penalized by KRA, they could also assess, come up with an assessment, a tax assessment, where they feel that you have been evading tax. So it's just one of those things. As a compliance expert, I just encourage all Kenyans, if this is the law that we're dealing with today, let us comply. If someone goes to court and it is successfully challenged and it is not appealed and overturned or whatever, then you then just follow the law as it's stated. But if this is the law that is there today, we just have to comply.
Okay, and as we always say as Kenyans, the law is very clear. So we all have to comply. So I'll just go through and look through some questions before we come back to go into a bit more detail. I can see, wow, there's quite a number of questions. James Karanja is asking, what is the way forward when a business is TIMS compliant, but customers are insisting on ETIMS invoices? I think that's just a slightly technical question to something you answered, but maybe Beatrice, you can answer that just so that we are very clear. I am TIMS compliant and they're asking for an ETIMS invoice. Are we confusing that one and the same thing here?
Yeah, I think what is lacking is probably the information to understand that, because the teams also generates an invoice that is acceptable for this purpose, including a QR code that you can scan and see that it's already transmitted to KRA portal, and that makes it a legit invoice, just like an ETIMS invoice.
Okay. So what you're
Yeah.
saying is that yes, it is compliant. If your team's compliant, you are ETIMS compliant because it's generating the same invoice. Can see my good friend Marcus is really complaining. Says all this sounds like it's placing a lot of burden on small businesses, as if Punda Hakua amechoka already. Okay, so I think somebody else is asking a question that might have been answered earlier. What is the requirement for consultants, freelancers, sole proprietors registering on ETIMS? I think that has been answered over and over, that you might not do it, but then you might find yourself in the space where your companies contracting you are insisting on the same, and because you don't have it, then you cannot do business with them. And so you kind of end up being locked out on working with certain companies. I think the Juakali sector, somebody had asked, and it seems like we are all headed in that direction. Personally, also always wondered why we have informal and formal businesses. There are certain countries where there's no differentiation between the two, because everyone is, contributing towards nation building. And so informal are businesses that have been flying under the radar for a long time. But a system like this, because somebody might be running an informal business, but maybe they are a fundi, but they've been supplying a business, but now that business will start to ask for an ETIMS invoice if they are to be able to deduct that expense. Somebody's asking, will this affect annual company returns in a case where expenses might not have VAT, small bills that have accumulated over the year. Not sure if I understand that, but I think Beatrice, you understand it. Yeah, will this affect annual company returns?
I think what you need to understand is that ETIMS is not TIMS in the sense that TIMS was strictly for VAT, but ETIMS was introduced. It captured all businesses, including non-VAT businesses. So the ETIMS comes with an option for non-VAT transactions, so that if you're not registered for VAT, you're still able to issue an ETIMS receipt or invoice which has no VAT. So it's really, it's not TIMS and ETIMS is a different thing.
Okay. Wow. I think I've just had an epiphany there. Somebody else is asking, can you install ETIMS on one machine only for more than one business?
So for that case, it means that you can use the third-party providers who will essentially do that integration for you. So you're able to register one company, one business, and then you have sub-companies on the same platform. This is a bit more technical, so the KRA will not provide you with that. But if you go with the third parties, then you're able to have that integration done, so such that you'll have all your businesses in one platform, but they're separate. They're separated. The transactions are separate per business entity, but it's on the same platform.
Okay. I can see why tax consultants exist, and why we will always keep coming to you. Marcus is asking a funny question. In addition to the questions from Mongera and Felicia Muriuki that I'm very keen on, allow me to ask point blank. I'm already my own finance director, operations director, marketing director, with me hopefully soon reaching out to Angela Kioi to streamline my legal applications, on top of being the person executing my core revenue verticals. With this in mind, is the minding of ETIMS and tax obligations something that Ushuru can take off my hands? If so, what are the terms? I think I've seen some responses to that, but maybe you could answer. Are you able to work with all sorts of companies, or are tax consultants just for big companies? I think that's what is being asked in quotes.
We are definitely here for all businesses, Marcus. So we can take off that load from your shoulders very seamlessly, such that we are able to handle your tax matters, including the ETIMS. We are doing onboarding for our clients who reach out at very good rates. So our rates range from 7,000 to 35,000 for the onboarding of ETIMS. And we are going to offer an incentive for people on this session. We're offering 25% discount.
Okay, I can see there's an incentive to be able to jump on board. So there's a link that will be coming towards the end. I can see time has really gone. But yes, there'll be a link coming up where you can register if you want to take advantage of this opportunity that Ushuru is offering to onboard you. And I think, we'll be offering how you can reach out to ourselves, either Beatrice or Angela. Some of you may be at that point where you still need to register your company or change your registration, or, just get started right from the beginning. We are all here to ensure that your businesses succeed. So I can see Mike Ngari is asking, is the QR code on the invoice the only to verify that that invoice has been issued through TIMS or ETIMS? Is that how KRA verifies that it's a TIMS or ETIMS invoice? There's a QR. I didn't know there was a QR code. I'm learning now. Is that how they verify that it's a TIMS or ETIMS invoice? I don't know if you're aware, Beatrice.
Yes, indeed. there are several details that should be included on the electronic tax invoice, and that includes your PIN. Your PIN should be on the invoice. Of course, the time of the invoice and date, the serial number of the invoice, in addition to the QR, the buyer's PIN if they are intending to claim the expense. Yeah. So if your client would like to claim that expense, then you need to input their PIN on that invoice. And then, of course, the amount and the code of the supply that you're providing. And a brief description of the goods and the quantity, the tax rate, and the invoice. Now, the unique system identifier is a CU number. When you receive an ETIMS invoice or even a TIMS invoice, it will have a CU number. Even when you're filing your VAT, this is the same number that you're required to use for KRA to be able to identify that invoice.
Yeah.
The QR code, basically, when you scan it, it will give you those numbers, the system identifier and the CU number.
Okay, technology. Somebody else is asking, you're on Zoho, QuickBooks, maybe Xero, and all these other accounting software. So is ETIMS a different system, or is it integrated into those ones? Maybe you can help them understand what they need to do, because they're already on an accounting system, and now they hear there's another system. Are they already integrated, or do we all need to do something different to be able to be compliant on that one? That's from Lucy Mwangi.
So Lucy, what you need to do first is to onboard to ETIMS. It's a separate step. So the first stage is to onboard to ETIMS. And then once you choose the solution, you can choose the integration to your existing system. So if you have Zoho or you have QuickBooks or you have Xero, then they're able to be linked by an expert to integrate the ETIMS onto those systems so that you continue using the same systems and your invoices will be ETIMS compliant.
Okay, I can see another interesting question. What if all my suppliers are fundis? What do I do? My business, I work with fundis. Okay, there is your answer. Encourage them to onboard so that you can make it deductible. Okay, so I can see Jana Nutuku saying, thank you for this educative session. If I'm providing my services on one-off basis to companies as an individual, am I supposed to register? Then how do I handle my expense side? On the side, must I provide my PIN to them? So say this hustler and I am contracted once or twice a year, to do something. Do I need to also onboard? And maybe you could answer if it's also a side hustle, what happens?
Yeah, that's what I think I had mentioned earlier. So there's going to be an option for temporary. You're able to create a temporary ETIMS invoice using the mobile device. I'm yet to see those integration happen, but I've not seen the mobile solutions work yet. But I know that will come in due time, such that you're able to input that sale on your mobile device and it will generate the required numbers for ETIMS compliance. But I don't think you're restricted to just that one business. So it's safer to just onboard and hope for more business.
Okay. We've asked this question from so many different angles, and the answer is onboard. It is safer to onboard. James Adanje Barasa is asking, I need to register my retail for ETIMS in the villages. Does it have a specific annual amount for you to fit in the bracket or what? So I guess this question is asking, I'm running a kiosk in Shamahoho. It's serving the local people there. is that a business that I should be on ETIMS? And I guess that, gets to that space of the informal space, or is there a bracket, a specified bracket by the government?
So the bracket is what we said is below 5 million who have been exempted from onboarding to ETIMS. But that depends on who are your customers. If you're supplying Safaricom milk, they will need you to support that invoice with an ETIMS invoice for them to be able to include that in their expenses. But if you're a mama mboga in the village who only supplies individuals, and I think you're safe without onboarding for now, until I know they will come up with another system for those sectors.
Okay. There's something that even sometime recently we were with KRA, and they were really complaining that this is something that happens a lot, and this goes to Angela. So there are times when you've discontinued the system use, you've changed your business model, you've closed your business, or you've gone bankrupt, or for whatever other reason. Are there procedures that we legally need to follow so that we don't stay in trouble with the taxman?
Yes. So the first thing is, I think you recognize that the taxman will continue to assume you're running business as long as you do not inform them. So where your business, either your business model has changed, where you're closing down your business, and you need to, one of the first obligations for you to do is you need to notify KRA that there's a change on that. That notification should come at least 30 days before you shut down your business, or at least before 30 days before the change of business is coming, or the change of the mode of how you do your business, or you're shutting down your business for whatever reason, then you need to give a 30 days notice. If you have not given the notice, if the reason that is that you're closing the business without it's sudden, then you are required to still again come back and inform ETIMS, inform KRA that you are shutting down your business, or that the business has now closed, even in the sudden nature of the closure of the business. So with this in mind, if you fail to do that, then the obligation will continue to persist. So even where you're closing your business and perhaps you have not deregistered your business, it's still in existence, but you're no longer operating. If you fail to notify, then your obligations will continue to run. Yeah.
And I know a lot of cases where people, maybe a friend or a family member, asked you to be a director on their company, and therefore you became a director on the company, and then maybe the business stopped running, and you're still on paper a director. And then over the years, you find that the business accumulates penalties because they were not filing returns. I hear of that case so many times. What are you supposed to do in that case? I'm sure you've come across that many times, where people are being taken to court by KRA and they had no idea that they had arrears because someone in 2008 put them as a director, shut down in 2010, and they've accumulated penalties until today. What happens in a situation like that? Or what should we do in a situation like that?
So I think when you come onto a business and act as a director, you really have certain obligations. And one of the obligations is to make sure that that business is tax compliant. So where the business has ceased acting, is no longer in operation, then you need to take the necessary steps. You either go ahead and wind down the business, deregister it, so that it's completely closed. Or in the alternative, and Beatrice can correct me, but I know that in some cases you can notify KRA that that business is no longer in operation, and therefore that does not need to file its annual tax returns. I'm not sure about how long that is permitted, but there is a way you can write and make an application to KRA for that. But I think on a legal perspective, is and I find this mistake happening a lot of times, is that people sort of forget that they're directors in many businesses. And, we did one deal in 2010 and that was it. No money was made, and you never think about it again. But really, you need to clean house and make sure that you either deregister the businesses, and either that or continue with meeting your obligations to file your returns. I know specifically around VAT, if your business was registered for VAT and you failed to file returns, I think that's about a penalty of about 10,000 shillings every month. Yeah. So you need to be aware of that. So in a year, that's 120,000 shillings. If it's been 10 years, can do the math, that's 1.2 trillion. Yeah, but I'd also say is that KRA over the last 2 years, I think I've seen since 2021, and I think also in 2023, either 2022 and 2023 have offered opportunities for businesses to get penalty waivers. So where you have paid principal taxes, then you're able to apply to waive the penalties penalties and interest that have accumulated over the years. And if you're running a business and you see such an opportunity and you've not been compliant, please look for Beatrice and make sure you apply for those waivers. They're really helpful. I can attest they actually work. So you make sure that you apply for the waivers, and then immediately thereafter, take the necessary steps. So if you're never going to operate that business again, now come, after you visit Beatrice, you come to Angela and I will help you deregister your business.
Yeah, so somebody's asking, if you have penalties, you have an ongoing case of penalties, can you wind down at that point, or you have to wait until you're done with the case with KRA before you can wind down the business?
You have to finish and finalize with KRA before you can wind down your business. And even if you went ahead and wound down your business, KRA has the power, and the courts have the power to bring you back to life, bring the business back. So that the penalties, so that can be addressed, and then now the business does properly.
Properly.
Properly. So the court, they still have an opportunity. They can still make a request to raise you up from the dead and make sure that those obligations are met before you now are completely put to rest as a business.
Yeah. Beatrice, someone is asking, how about landlords with residential properties? Do they need to onboard ETIMS?
Who are their customers? If it's a freelancer who wants to claim a third of their rent as an expense, goes back to the same. Do I want to pay tax on that, or will I want to enjoy the deduction?
Okay. So basically, landlords need to onboard if their customers, need those ETIMS, whatever. Which I think for commercial properties that goes without saying. For residential, you may have residential where people want to claim using, the expense. They want to expense if it's an allowable. Should we say benefit or something, or maybe they're a freelancer who wants to claim. So basically, yes, that landlord at some point will have to onboard if they want to keep that tenant.
Eventually, we will all be compliant. Eventually,
yes.
Don't be caught up.
I think that is basically the conclusion here. I remember one time. I think I was in Germany, and they mentioned how the German tax system, they usually go door to door systematically, and they tick off, and they've gone to house number 11, they'll come to house number 12, and so all Germans live in the fear that one day they will appear on the door, and therefore everyone just becomes compliant because they know one day the system will catch up with them. And I can see it's like our KRA people have been hanging out with the Germans. I saw a headline earlier today, we shall not talk about that. And so, but yes, I think we are headed in the same direction where it will become extremely difficult to run away from the system. Somebody is asking around, please comment on insurance intermediary services. If I am an insurance intermediary, I'm an agent, do I need to onboard ETIMS? I think there are a lot of people who want context on their own specific type of businesses. That came as a DM, yeah.
So the agent raises invoices to the insurance company.
Yes.
To be paid their bills.
Commissions, yes.
Yeah. And the insurance company will need to claim that as an expense. You know the answer.
I wish we all had our mics on and we would say, and so we all need to be compliant in like a choir. Okay, I think we are running out of time. And so there's somebody saying kindly share contacts for further discussions with the two guests. So please, Angela and Beatrice, if you have your people here or yourselves, if you can do it, please just put on the chat how everyone can reach you. Somebody's asking what legal options exist for tax exemption. Somebody's trying to see how they can avoid paying. So which are the kinds of organizations now that can be tax exempt?
Okay, I think in terms of tax exemptions, there are in certain situations, I think it's specific to, I don't know what type of organization you're running, but in fact, I'm wondering whether whether you're talking about VAT tax or just generally tax exemption. There's so many different ways, and there are certain exemptions that are given. For example, there's exemptions for people with disabilities. There are exemptions for non-profit organizations who enjoy not paying tax as a non-profit. So it just really depends. And maybe what I'd encourage with such a question is that there's a nuance to it that we have to sit down and ask ourselves what exactly it is that you do as a business, and then see if there is any legal exemption that has been provided under the law that you can enjoy. And you note that I say legal exemption. I say it's a legal option. So whether there's any exemption that has been provided under the law that you may enjoy. And I'm sure as I market for Ushuru, I'm sure Beatrice and Ushuru can be able to sit down with you and structure your business in a way where you are tax efficient. And I think that is the of us.
Yes.
Businesses is that we need to be tax efficient. You need to think about what is the best way for me to structure my business and my obligations to ensure that I do not pay more tax than I'm supposed to pay.
Okay. I don't know if there's anyone with a verbal question that we can ask to unmute to ask a question, but I can see a very interesting question here. I am registered as an individual. I do work as an individual freelancer. I do work under my business name, and at some point I had registered a business. Will those be seen as three different entities that need to onboard onto ETIMS, or should it be one entity that onboards onto ETIMS? And I think there's a lot of people who probably do this where they are maybe individual consultant, so they have a business where if it's business that says you need to have a business to get this tender, they can apply with that. But there are other organizations like the UN that will say, I want to contract you as an individual contractor. So there are people who do business, using those different formats. Would they be considered three different entities to onboard onto ETIMS simultaneously, or is it one because of one PIN number? I know it's a very technical question.
So if you're running all the businesses, all the hustle using one PIN, then that means it's one onboarding for all of them, because the law requires you to declare all your worldwide income, whatever the source, but it's all in one. It's all for one pin. So you're
Okay.
onboarding only once.
Only once. Huh? Okay, thank you very much. I've been reminded that for you to be eligible for the discount that has been offered, you have to fill in the form that has been posted in the chat. If you email directly, we might not know if you are in this webinar to qualify for that. So please just fill in the form and then we'll be able to direct you to enjoy the discount that has been offered to help you on board. And I'm sure if you have any other tax issues that need to be sorted out, Ushuru is able to handle them. They are very competent tax people, and I know they also have the capacity to handle very large volumes. The very funny thing about Ushuru is that when it usually comes to the deadline for tax returns, that time all of us at Sandbox just know, don't try and catch them for anything social but the day after the deadline, give them 2-3 days to sleep, and then after that, now you can find them, because all of you are so last minute. So to give them some extra sleep at that time, please contact them now so that they can do your assessments early. If you have any disputes, they should be able to help you navigate that as well. Angela Kioi, our legal person, handles all matters legal. Her firm is able to represent you on everything that you may need, whether it is the documentation or going through the process of registration, getting your shareholders on board, investors, and all the legal documentation that is required, or on anything else, whether you have a dispute that needs to be resolved, whether you have any legal issues in terms of you need to fix your internal contracts with your employees, with your clients, with partners and those kinds of things. They're able to give you 360 degrees on matters legal. So feel free to be able to reach out to them. Like I said, now we are at the tail end of this webinar, but I can see from the questions and from the many things that have been mentioned that we probably need to plan for another one because there's just so many different issues to deal with. And I know if we go into the technicalities of tax or legal, there are so many other topics. So for sure, as Sandbox will be bringing them back to talk to you on other issues. But if you're out there and you're an entrepreneur and you have any tax or legal issues that you need sorted out, you can feel free to either come to the Sandbox. We'll be able to pair you up with them, and they can assess your issues and see how they can support your business going forward. Beyond that, we have many other experts at the Sandbox as well, and many programs that shall be running. And we shall also be doing this every 2 weeks. We will have a different topic on the different webinars that we shall be doing. So we are going to learn a lot this year. Our businesses should not be suffering by the end of the year. We should basically be those compliant, growing businesses that don't have to give excuses as to why we cannot get any work from your large clients. So we thank you all so much for joining us today. We had prepared a lot of questions. Beatrice and Angela, I know we've not even gone halfway. There are so many questions, but I don't know if you have any parting shots based on the many cases you've dealt with and seen. What would you advise our entrepreneurs who've joined us here today regarding their businesses and our topic of the day? Maybe we could start with Angela and then finish with Beatrice.
Okay, so mine is just to say compliance. Be compliant. Understand what the law is, understand what you're required to do, and ensure that you do it as a business. I think from the trend that we're seeing, a compliant business is one that will be able to trade with a lot of entities. Where we do not have compliance, we miss out on opportunities, and we will miss out on opportunities. And I think that it has been a theme. I'd say that it's been a theme since 2010, that we have just been creeping slowly towards making sure all businesses are compliant with their obligations. So if you're running a business, if you're a freelancer, if you're a creative, if you're an individual, a consultant, reach out and find out what it is you can do to ensure that your business is compliant, or that your service, that you are compliant with the law. And if you need any further legal advice, please do not hesitate to reach out. I have shared our details on the chat, and I can share them again. So if you have any legal questions with regards to the setup of your company, or even with regards to other general compliance for your business, please reach out to us. And thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Beatrice, what is your parting shot to the people who've joined us today?
Thank you everyone for joining this webinar today. I think the take home is we know, I don't know if you know, but KRA are looking to tell, they want to be able to tell what liability of tax is out there. And hence the technology intervention for them to be able to understand their taxpayers better. So the earlier the better. Let's all comply and avoid any future issues. We at Ushuru are happy to support you in this journey. We have several clients who depend on us, and we provide services that are essential for businesses to maximize on their profits and pay as little tax as you can, because there's no reward for paying tax. You'll not be told you'll be using this specific road because you're paying a lot of tax. So understanding where you can optimize your tax position is always a plus for your business. So reach out to us. Our contacts are on the chat. And we look forward to hosting you in other webinars or even physical trainings, which we are hoping to do also, and keep educating people on tax and sensitizing any new matters that come up.
Okay, thank you very much. Mumesikia, you will not drive on a separate road if you pay more tax than you should. That is why you should work with somebody who helps you to optimize and pay just the right amount, and also, be more profitable as well. We have a wealth of knowledge and resources at Sandbox. Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you, Angela. This was very insightful. Remember when I was telling you the time will always feel very short once we get into it. Here we are. Time is actually up. But thank you for all the people who are able to join us, taking your time this evening to be here with us. We have many more experts like Beatrice and Angela who can just help you structure your business, strategize, run in a manner that's compliant, and still be profitable. I mean, that's our philosophy at the Sandbox. We help you to remain profitable, even if you're paying all the taxes you need to. After Ushuru has helped you to optimize, even if you're being compliant, after Angela has helped you, we help you do all the things that can help structure your business very well, and for you to be able to run optimally as a business that can both generate wealth for yourself and a business that doesn't finish you off, a business that can operate without you having to be present. Those are the things we specialize in. And so thank you very much. Feel free to pass your thanks through chat to the different people here. Remember, the offer you get is when you fill in the form. So please do that so that you can enjoy the 25% discount that has been offered here today to help you onboard onto ETIMS. So please go right ahead and fill that in. It's in the chat. I've seen someone asking if the recording is going to be shared. Yes, I think we'll share, especially the people who are here. But you can also join our other platforms so that you can see future events that we are going to have. You can join the Sandbox newsletter. You can subscribe on Ushuru and Kioi's websites for their newsletters as well, just so that you can stay informed when they have new information or when there's something running. I remember at some point towards the end of last year, Beatrice was offering to help people enjoy the waivers from KRA. And a lot of people jumped on that particular opportunity. So there's usually offers or opportunities that come up at different times. So you can onboard onto our social media platforms, our newsletters on the different websites, or you can come to the sandbox if you just need your business sorted out. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your candid, questions. And we look forward to continuing to work with you, and we look forward to meeting you every second and third Wednesday, at the same time for different topics. So looking forward to meeting you on that. And for now, it's exactly 8:30. We'd like to say good night, have a good evening. Kesho tuamke, and let's be compliant. God bless you and have a good evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.